Hello and welcome back to this CKA series courses. In this exercise, we will be letting away now the application debugging, and we will start with the permission section. In this section, we will be working basically with cluster roles, and service accounts. We are having here the first exercise. In this exercise, we are given two namespaces, NS1 and NS2. We might create this service account called pipeline in both namespaces. These service accounts should be allowed to view almost everything in the whole cluster, and we will be using the cluster role view for this. Also, this service account should be allowed to create and delete only deployments in only their namespaces. Verified everything using this command. Alright, what does it mean? We have to create these two service accounts for, one service account for each namespaces, so two service accounts. At the end, that will have view permissions in the whole cluster and the permissions to create and delete only deployments in only their service accounts. In only their namespaces. What does it mean? That we will be using cluster role view as it will be for the whole cluster, and cluster role binding, since we will be binding it for the whole cluster, and another permission role, cluster role, to create these permissions for create delete deployments, because we are gonna reuse this permission and then, this role, and then we're gonna create some role binding, not cluster role binding, only role binding, because they will be binding one service accounts to their own namespace. What does it mean? The difference here that we can understand based on this title is that we can see two kinds of roles and role binding. The first one is only applicable for those resources, for those namespace, and the other one, the cluster, is for the whole cluster. All right, so having that into consideration, let's start creating the service accounts. For create service accounts, we can use the command create SA. We have to specify first of all the namespace. Create a service account, and this is called pipeline, right? The namespace is NS1. All right, so we have created the first one, and now we may create the second one. All right, we have created both service accounts in both namespaces. It's very important that the name can be the same here, because we are doing two different namespaces. If we are doing the same in the same namespace, the names cannot be the same. Like, for example, if I try now to create again the same one, we will have an error because this these service accounts already exist. What is the next one? Okay, this is telling us to use this view role that is already created to use it. So let's check what is that. This is this say that almost everything you can use the default cluster role. Okay, this is a cluster role. It's called view, right? Okay, so yeah, we have here created, and if we do this describe, we will be able to see all the permissions attached to that cluster role. All right, so now that we have it, we can attach it to our pipeline. How do we do it? Okay, so one is the role, another thing is the role binding. Role binding is the act of adding one role to a service account. So let's do it. Create cluster role binding, because this is cluster role binding because it will be for the whole cluster, not for any namespace in particular. We have to give it a name, so let's call it view cluster for example, and it will be using this cluster role called view, and service account NS1 pipeline and NS2 pipeline. I have to again use this flag. Service account. All right, now it's created. Once again, we create this cluster role binding to bind this cluster role to these service accounts. We have to give it a name, then we have to specify which cluster role and which service accounts are we using. Per each service account, we should add this tag. It's very important that in front of the name of the pipeline, we always have to add the namespace, double point, and the name of the pipeline. Sorry, the name of the namespace. What else? Okay, now it's asking us to allow to create and delete deployments in their own namespaces. So for doing that, what can we do? Okay, we can create a new cluster role because we want to use it across the whole cluster, and create these permissions on this role. So to create a cluster role, we use the command create cluster role. We're gonna call it I don't know, deployment admin. Next, we have to tell what is able to do this role. Let's say it's going to create and delete. And then we have to add the resource. This is the deployment. Okay, we have created the cluster role. We have created across the whole cluster a cluster role with this name that's going to be able only to create and to delete deployment. So now we have to attach this role to the service accounts. How do we do it? So we used before cluster role binding. Now we're going to use role binding without the cluster because we want to add this only to particular service accounts in particular namespaces. So we don't want to do it across the whole service, across the whole cluster. We want to do only for their own namespaces. So create role binding. Create role binding, let's give it a name. Deployment admin can be the same. Mean cluster role is called here. We have this one, cloud and deployment admin. And then we have to tell the service accounts. And that's one pipeline. Created, and now the same for the second one. Oh yes, because it's already exists, so it should have done in one line, but I've done in two. So now I have to. Oh, actually, I should have declared here the namespace that we're gonna do it. ns1. Okay, and now yes. And here ns. Oh, sorry, namespace not found. Okay, created. Now let's try to check if this is working. Validation successful. Great. How else can we check in this real cluster if we don't have that button that this is working? So as we saw at the end, we have the command qauth can I think was called auth can I, and it takes later the verb and then what you want to do. So in this case, let me take my notes because I don't know this command by default. Okay, in this case, for example, let's check for update. Deployments, if we can update the deployments, and we have to say how system, oh, sorry, I wrote system service account and s1 pipeline. All right, we should have a no, false, yep, because we only have permissions to create and to delete. So in the case that now we use this create, we should have yes. Oh, sorry, create doesn't exist. Create, yes. How about list? For list, of course, because we give the view permission for everyone. Yes, but for example, list the secrets is a role that is not included in the view role. So if we here write secrets instead of deployment, we have no. So this is another way that we can test in a real cluster if we have attached the real permissions or not. Hope you like it and stay tuned for the next one. See you.